right. We'll call the meeting, Grimes City Council meeting of August 25th, 2026 to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Roll call, please.
Johansson, Earlbeck, here. DePhillips,
Here.
Lovelady,
Here.
Borkerding.
All right, thank you. That moves us on to approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Earlbeck. Aye. Lovelady.
Aye.
DePhillips.
Aye.
All right, that passes. Thank you. That brings us to public forum. Is anybody signed up for public forum?
We have 4 people signed up.
Okay.
First is Grant Thornton.
Hey, Grant, please state your name and address, and then you'll have 3 minutes, and there'll be a clock up there for you to help you out.
All right, thank you. Hello, my name is Grant Thornton. I live in 1700 Northeast Gateway Drive. I am here as a concerned citizen of Grimes, and I want to share today with the city and the citizens of Grimes about what I'm worried about. The concern here is transparency. I think we all can agree public officials will be more respected if they were all transparent and more forthcoming. I happened to look at the amendment for the sheriff's contract, and inside the budget section, I noticed a line item for flock safety. Although no funds were allocated, I asked the question, why were they there in the first place? Are we going to get automatic license plate readers? Because I know we have seen the misuse of the data collected by flock employees and its users. I wouldn't feel safer in the community to know that features that it can provide, such as Bluetooth connection as you drive by the camera, to it looking up your last Amazon purchase. I understand the uses of the camera, but I also understand the destruction of trust between the citizens of Grimes to the public servants who are elected to represent us, not dismantle our Fourth Amendment right. Now that I said my piece on automatic license plate readers, I also want to inquire if we are getting a data center here in Grimes. I know they are a popular subject, but popular subject from the contamination and destruction of watersheds to creating high energy costs placed upon the citizens who didn't want it in the first place. But people are wondering why they are popping up while no one is looking. Now I want to remind the citizens of Grimes, if a public representative signs an NDA for a new development, then it's most likely not in the best interest for the people that elected them. Again, it's about transparency. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Grant. Next.
John Palmer.
Go ahead, John.
Good evening. I'm John Palmer. I live at 1401 Southwest 7th Street in Grimes. I'm just here tonight to do a couple of things. First of all, to say a huge thank you to our city council. I'm proud to live in Grimes, and I'm so grateful for the good work that you do. I know it's a labor of love, and I appreciate all that you do to serve our community. I'm proud to tell people that I live in this community and that we have excellent leadership. Secondly, a couple years ago, you approved the building of our church building, Summit Creek Church on James Street. I want to thank you for that. We've had 5 weeks and it's been awesome. And I came tonight specifically to invite you. We're having a 9/11 tribute service. You may know that on September 11th will be the 25th anniversary. And so we are having about a 45-minute service over the lunch hour Chief Coleman will be speaking and several others. And I just, I wanted to invite you to come if that would work into your schedule. And when I'm done here, I'll give this to the city clerk and she can perhaps pass these along to you. And then thirdly, I just want to share a little story that communicates that I hope will communicate to you how my wife and I feel about all of you. It was on March 28th, 1990. The Chicago Bulls were playing the Cleveland Cavaliers, and Stacey King scored 1 point in the same night that Michael Jordan scored 69 points. And after the game, someone asked Stacey King, so what do you think about scoring 1 point on the night that Michael Jordan scored 69? And he said, I'll always remember this as the night that Michael Jordan and I combined to score 70 points. I want to thank you because in my book, you're 69 pointers. And hopefully all the rest of us can do our part. And as we do, together, we can make a difference. And the other cool thing about that story is the team won by 1 point that night. Stacey King's point really mattered. So I want to say to all the citizens of Grimes, what we do really does matter. We need leadership, but all of us can make a contribution. So thank you very, very much. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, John. Appreciate those kind words. Next,
Leroy Edge.
okay, Leroy.
Good evening. My name is Leroy Edge. I live at 900 Northeast 12th Street. I have a story to share with you tonight. I'll try and keep it short. This summer, my wife and I decided on a kind of a backyard project. We have a walkout basement and a small concrete patio area. So we decided to lay more concrete and extend the patio area. And we also wanted to put a shed on it. So we made it long enough that we could get a shed on it. The reason for that, we have kind of a sloping backyard, and so there's no other good place for it. So we thought we'll just make this nice and level and add the shed. The shed was planned to be 10 foot by 12 foot, which is 120 square feet. We found a company to build the shed on our concrete slab. We submitted an accessory building permit application for the shed. The application required a drawing or map of where the shed would be located on our property. The shed would not be near any property lines and would be 19 feet from our house on the concrete slab. After submitting the application, I received an email from Grimes building inspector, Jared Bark. Jared indicated that due to the proximity of the shed to my deck, it would need to have 2 layers of 5/8 inch sheetrock on the interior for fire protection purposes. He included City Code 11-8-2, Section 7, which reads, accessory structure with an area of 100 square feet or more, located less than 10 feet from a dwelling and or another structure, my deck, shall be provided with 2 layers of 5/8 inch type X sheetrock or equivalent in throughout the areas of the structure that encroach the 10 feet. As I said, the shed would be 3 feet from our deck. Therefore, 7 feet of the 12-foot interior length of the shed would have to be covered with 2 layers of sheetrock, walls and ceiling. The other 5 feet would not. I asked Jared if there would be any way for me to get a variance. He said I could submit an application for a variance. The appeals board would meet in 3 weeks. I would have to submit $150 with the application. This seemed like an expensive process to potentially get denied by an appeals board and would delay the installation of the shed. In the 14 years that I've resided in Grimes, I don't remember hearing about any shed fires. I already have a 24 by 30 foot shed on my property. It sits right next to my house. In fact, it's attached to my house. Some people call it a garage. All my neighbors have similar sheds. I don't know of any fireproof sheetrock requirements for the walls between these sheds and the houses they are attached to. So I was not able to have a 10 foot by 12 foot shed. And I couldn't even have a 10 foot by 10 foot shed. I went back to our shed contractor and they said they could build me a 9x11 shed, 99 square feet, 1 square foot less than 100. I went back to Jared and he said that would work. The permit application was amended and approved. So I want to leave you with two questions. Considering the facts of my story, do any of the building requirements that I listed or the expensive appeal process sound reasonable to any of you? And was there more of a fire potential at 120 square feet or 100 square feet rather than 99 square feet? I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Leroy. Next.
Last, we have Terry Golightly.
Good evening, Council. Terry Golightly, 1810 Northeast Heritage Drive. 6 years here in Grimes now. 6 years of coming to council about the speed issue on Heritage Drive north of Beaverbrook. 6 years of inaction. That's item number one. Just will remind you. The construction right now that we have going on in adjacent to 44. The slowness of what's going on. Yes, we have had weather, but we also have very little activities on days when it's dried out and there's things that can be done. North is now moving, but starting yesterday morning, we have pylons put south of 44 off the curb to the west, cutting down the southbound lane of that area to establish 3 lanes. Nobody's working, nobody's starting working at all. Same thing today. And I made a call in. I want to know who's managing these things. And I was told that this is a different company that's going to handle the southbound than what handled the northbound. This responsibility lies on our city administrator who manages all the employees, the individual employees that manage departments, and it ultimately is for elected city officials to make sure that all of these areas are working and covering what they're hired for. I also would like to touch base on the roundabout that was not set aside for discussion at last meeting. I want to see the traffic study numbers, that this is a feasible solution for this, number one. And I would like to point out to council, in my traveling around central Iowa to major metropolitan areas, from Ames, Ankeny, Polk City, West Des Moines, Waukee, etc., the number of roundabouts that I travel through, especially during the summer, because I'm daycare for a grandchild, okay? I do not recall any roundabout that I have gone through that has 2 major retail locations that are high volume for people trying to access, number one, but also a roundabout that sits so close to a 4-lane major highway for the state. I again am going to state that there needs to be more research done on this, and that I do not feel, living in that area, that this is the solution for what we have going on at that particular intersection. Based on the high density housing, the driveways that come off just to the west of that intersection, the driveway that comes off into Quick Star between 141 and the proposed roundabout. And also there's a turn to the daycare and Casey's and the coffee shop on the other side. So I don't really feel this is real well thought out at this point. Thirdly, I would like to...
Terry, your time's been up for a little while, so if you can make it really brief, please.
Okay. Third thing I'm going to point out, we have reverse osmosis for our water system. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. I want to know why toilets in the area that I live in, and this has been called to Kevin's attention before, are developing mold, brown water, yellow slimy stuff in as little as 2 days between cleanings. That is my biggest question. And I am here after every council meeting, and I have requested conversation with council, and I've stood around and waited several times and have not been engaged. So I would like some questions answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for those public comments. To Terry's last point, a lot of us do hang around. Please come up, talk to us. I apologize if I didn't ever specifically go seek a person out, but I usually try to hang around if people want to talk to me, and they're welcome to approach me. I think that's the same for all the other council members that are here and not here. And so I encourage people to stay and do that. So like Grant made some comments. Grant, happy to talk some of that through after the meeting if you want. With that, move on to approval of the consent agenda.
Move to approve consent.
I'll second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Roll call.
Earlbeck,
Aye.
Lovelady,
Aye.
DePhillips. Aye.
Okay, that passes. That brings us to the proposed action items. Number 1, 2026 CIPP lining project. We are going to have a public hearing on that. And before we have the public hearing, though, Matt is going to give us some background.
Sure. As you can notice on the agenda, this one doesn't have the items that we usually see when we have a public bid and award. That was because last week when we did open our bids on the 18th, we did not receive any bids. This is the first time it's happened to me in 27 years of doing engineering. So kind of a first. We did set the public hearing date last month at the July meeting. So we'll hold that public hearing, but there really isn't any action items that we have following that because of the fact that we kind of have to go back to the drawing board and put the bids out in a different way. And we did get some feedback from the people that did bid it. We had a consultant contact the potential bidders, and basically with that feedback, we're going to take the project and break it into 2 pieces that might make it more attractive to the bidders and bidding on the 2 different components of it instead of having it all in one package.
Thank you, Matt.
Sure.
With that, I'll open the public hearing on this specific item at this time. Would anybody like to address council on this specific item? Hearing none, any written communication?
No, sir.
With that, I'll close the public hearing. And then thank you for the context, Matt, of just kind of explained, kind of repackage it, and hopefully it'll be successful. And
We're aiming for.
yeah, I don't know if council, you had any other questions about that?
Just in any concerns or anticipation of bids coming in higher when we break it into 2 packages like that. I mean, obviously we've budgeted or kind of have our eye on
Sure.
what we expect it to come in at, but I've said I'm another WRA, for example, is having some challenges getting reasonably priced bids as well on a project, and they had raised some concerns with separating it and what that would mean. So also, is it timing related? I mean, if you wait a little bit, would you anticipate different, or the feedback?
I think just separating the 2 pieces out, because that's kind of what happened is there was a removal piece and a lining piece put in the same project, and the people doing the lining were the prime bidders, and they were unsure about the removal piece. And so the plan is to take the removal piece and send it out to people to do that work, and then have the lining piece more attractive to the lining folks. And in the end, I think we'll have bidders and hopefully a decent price on them too.
I think maybe it's in line with what she was talking about, but generally speaking, when we have one contractor do a full project, bids usually come in a little bit lower. Do we project that having to have two different contractors, that the bids might be higher than what we had anticipated?
I wouldn't think so, because I think taking the two bids and having people doing more of their specialty work will actually make the better, because you end up with a prime bidder and a sub bidder, and the sub bidder is going to have their piece marked up by the prime bidder. So separating it out into two is kind of a pain, because you have two bids in, but you end up with not having to have markup in the middle of it all.
Makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate that context. Since there's no action on that, we'll move on to item number 2, third consideration of ordinance 813 amendment to the Title 12 zoning regulations regarding PUD regulations. And Alex.
Thank you, Mayor. There hasn't been any changes since the public hearing, first consideration or second consideration, so I'll roll through this. But again, what we're doing, and this is all derived from the comprehensive plan. One of the action items, and there was to go and update the planning and development ordinance. So our current practice, again, we have two different kind of PUD districts. We're merging those into one to address kind of some of the inconsistencies between the two, and then how uses are permitted within those various current PUD designations. So the proposal on the left-hand side is simply what it is. It creates a single unified PUD district. And then what I think is really important is establishes that criteria and the parameters to approve a PUD. So we're identifying the purpose and intent listed here, encouraging, innovative site planning, trying to address elevated architectural design, efficiency in the development. The eligibility criteria, so this is what the council will use to determine if a project is eligible. So it's a variety of different development types, whether or not that's integrated mixed use or creative developments that are trying to be more efficient with land utilization. Maybe there's preservation that's being sought after, unified architectural features, and then development concepts that just require some sort of flexibility from the conventional zoning, which is very kind of rigid. The application requirements, these are a lot of things that we require all today, but we're just memorializing it within the ordinance. So we want, development narratives, comparative analysis between, if it was a PUD and conventional zoning, compatibility. What are we changing from conventional zoning? What's the justification? We want to make sure we're the infrastructure sized appropriately. Talking about phasing, stormwater management, development agreement, again, something we've been requiring, but now memorialized. This would just identify, an outline of those design standards and requirements that we would anticipate being in a development agreement. And then the approval criteria, which again is a test that we'll go through with the council when we have a PUD in front of you. But, we're looking for consistency with the comp plan, that we're providing, a development project that's equal or superior to what could be achieved through conventional zoning. We're really focused on compatibility with surrounding land uses and addressing the public infrastructure needs, high quality site design, architectural design, minimizing adverse offsite impacts, and then appropriately identifying what those public benefits are. So again, no changes since the public hearing, first and second consideration. Got a few cleanup items that we've talked about throughout the process here. But with that, we'd recommend approval of third consideration, adoption. Happy to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you, Alex. I'm going to take advantage of a slightly crowd than normal here. And if you could, briefly just kind of remind us, why a PUD and why not just traditional zoning? What's kind of the onus for people pursuing that option?
Yeah, so our current ordinance, the conventional zoning is a typical Euclidean zoning, meaning there's zoning districts for industrial, zoning districts for commercial, zoning districts for residential. Oftentimes we see PUDs largely because we're trying to mix those uses, whether or not that's commercial and residential on top of each other or adjacent to each other, in a kind of in a horizontal format. Occasionally you will see developments that want really small lots. And maybe they're doing that in order to preserve more open space or to dedicate more parkland, whatever that may be. Any of those two examples that I just gave you don't fit into conventional zoning. So our conventional zoning and like a single family district is going to have, you got to be a 60-foot or a 70-foot wide lot by 150-foot deep, and there's side yard setbacks and all the things. Or it may be in a commercial district, we don't allow residential uses. So for example, like in the downtown where y'all have approved a site plan for commercial building on the main floor and residential living units above, our traditional zoning doesn't allow for that. Now we know like in a downtown district that's more common, so a PUD accommodates that. Or likewise, when I was talking about the smaller lot sizes, a PUD would be a vehicle for that as well. So you can, again, if we're looking back at some of like the approval criteria, or provides identifiable public benefits that justify required flexibility. So you could say in a small lot subdivision, we're going to narrow the lots and maybe reduce some of the setbacks. And what we're going to do to provide that open space is we're going to dedicate it in a larger public park in the middle of the development. So the public's going to benefit from a larger park. Maybe they're not as interested in having larger yards or whatever it may be. It's kind of the developer's interest in their market at the time. But that'd be a way to connect the dots between, some sort of deviation from the zoning and the public benefit.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate that context a lot because it's definitely about how, I guess in my opinion, if I rephrase that, the zoning is written in a way it's pretty standard, it's pretty plain Jane, it's not super duper in depth, but sometimes things require the depth, and this avenue allows for that. And I think another point to call out though is when you do these kinds of things, you're not really changing the spirit of the zoning per se, more of how it's perhaps laid out within the geographic area. But you're not giving more or less necessarily speaking, except maybe in a positive trade-off like the park you said.
Correct.
Yeah. So I just think those are things that matter because you see those PUDs come up and I think it makes people go, well, why are we doing that? And is there some special deal or something? And I'm really just trying to accommodate and make things better for the region. So all right, I'll stop. Council, any comments, questions, or action on this?
Not from me, and if there aren't from others, I would go ahead and move to approve the third consideration of ordinance 813.
I'll second it.
Okay, been moved in a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Earlbeck,
Aye.
Lovelady,
Aye.
DePhillips,
Aye.
All right, thank you. And can I have a motion for final passage on that?
I would make a motion for final passage of the third consideration of ordinance 813.
I'll second that.
Final adoption.
All right, there's been a motion, a second for final passage. Roll call, please.
Earlbeck,
Aye.
Lovelady,
Aye.
DePhillips,
Aye.
All right. Thank you. That brings us to item number 3, second consideration of ordinance 814 James Place PUD amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the second consideration of ordinance 814. This is an existing planned unit development located at the southwest corner of James and 19th Street. It's approximately 40 acres in size. The future land use identifies a variety of uses, mixed use, high density, and medium density residential. That is consistent with how the existing PUD is approved or in its approved form. The proposed PUD is also consistent with that, where we have mixed use, high density, and then a mixed medium high density, and then park is kind of like the new portion of it, which really is what kind of precipitated all of this. So again, there's nothing principally changing with the planned unit development that was adopted by council a number of years ago. What caused this is the city's acquisition of about 5 acres of ground for a stormwater detention facility. And that had a ripple effect through the development, just in how they laid the development out. Also in some of their fees for parkland and streets that were owed at the time of development. So we are able or needing to reconcile some of that. Beyond that, really the only principal change is, and I spoke about this during the public hearing, but the developers kind of market perspective has shifted a little bit, and based on some of the improvements the city's doing along 19th and James, has an interest in preserving some additional ground for commercial development, which ultimately will reduce the number of multifamily units that are on the property because it's consuming more of those acres. But between what was previously approved and now, there's no additional density within the development. There's just some additional area for commercial development, and then recognition of the city's acquisition of the pond and how that trickled into like the fees and the parkland dedication that was owed. So this is the revised concept, still showing the maximum number of dwelling units that can be west of Norton. This shows what that could look like in a commercial setting. And then it obviously recognizes the pond. So that's what I have for you. There's no other changes from the public hearing, but would happy to answer any questions you have.
All right, thank you. Council, any comments, deliberation on this?
Alex, I appreciate you, spelling that out a little bit for us, a little bit more, give me a little bit better understanding than it was last time. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate last meeting when this or the first time this came up, there were some comments about this, and it created some good conversation and just helped remind us of just different things, and I appreciate those conversations and people's willingness to listen. And just for the public benefit, when we see something like this and we're talking about zoning and whatnot, our job as council is to look at these things and say, does this fit the laws as we've described them for zoning? If yes, we should approve. It's not to say, I don't like that, I don't want it. We're supposed to uphold the laws that have been passed. Now, if we don't like the laws, we can change them, but that's not what this is about, right? We're saying, does this fit the law? And so just a kind of a reminder of that, because that came up previously, and I think it's a good reminder. Whether we like how these large public processes work or not, that's how they work by law. So just for whatever good that is for people to hear. So with that, any other questions or comments or action?
Alex, at what point in the process would they determine or notify the city whether they're moving forward with that intended or potential commercial space?
Yeah, so systematically how this works is the zoning, it offers the entitlement to the property to go develop. They would still need to seek preliminary plating and site plans for approval of any projects. So anything that you see within this concept plan, any building, parking lot, would come before the city for approval first. So it first gets submitted to staff, goes through a review process, planning and zoning will review, provide a recommendation, city council ultimately reviews, and it does that adoption. Or does that approval. So whether or not that's an apartment project or a convenience store or a commercial office building, they all get treated the same. They all go through the same process, which includes notifications to surrounding property owners. And then, like I said, that P&Z and city council approval.
Yeah, good reminder of that as well. Thank you.
No further comment. I would move to approve the second consideration of ordinance 814.
I will second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Earlbeck,
Aye.
Lovelady,
Aye.
DePhillips,
Aye.
All right, that passes. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate the conversation and comments. That brings us to item number 4, second consideration of ordinance 815, amendment to the code of ordinance title 12, zoning regulations associated the Board of Adjustments, accessory dwelling units, architecture and rezoning, consent and petitions, and Section 6412 fireworks regulation and permitting. Alex.
No changes since the public hearing first consideration. Roll through these slides. Largely, these are code amendments that are required by the state. And this is from the most recent legislative session as well as last year's legislative session. So the first one here is related to consent for rezones. The state has removed certain abilities for petition requirements, and then we're cleaning that up with kind of aligning it with as it pertains to like how rezones are submitted to the city requiring neighboring property owner consent. Both of those are being removed just to be in line with the state code and then generally practices that we've been seeing over the past couple of years. Board of Adjustment is probably the largest change. So the state has provided a kind of a different process for certain variances that are dimensional in nature. So, or have some sort of like numerical limitation that could be like lot size, setback, width, height, anything that has kind of a number associated with it. The state has identified that there are practical difficulties identifying that if that variance is unique or if there is a hardship. So they have removed some of those requirements, and then our ordinance is just being updated to recognize that there's this like numerical process and then like non-numerical process. In addition, because there's a secondary element to the Board of Adjustment that they have imposed upon us. And I don't think I mentioned this before, but Board of Adjustment is kind of one of those unique boards in that they are quasi-judicial. So they do make decisions and, kind of effectively create law of sorts, just kind of variances from the law. But previously before this, their actions didn't have to come to city council for final adoption. So they're kind of the end all. And if there was an appeal to that, so if the property owner that submitted a variance didn't get their variance, their real only course of action was to sue the Board of Adjustment in district court. That is quite onerous and not really practical for most property owners. So the state has, again, imposed a kind of an alternative requirement or option for property owners that if you're affected by the ordinance, and that could mean you're a neighbor, other property owner, citizen, whatever it may be, you can appeal that decision to the city council within 60 days. City council has the ability to remand it back to the Board of Adjustment. They could just overturn the Board of Adjustment's requirements or decision altogether with a 2/3 vote. So it's just a new avenue. I think we spoke a little bit about the practicality of implementing this, and that, a property owner may have up to 90 days of kind of this period of, I don't know what to do. Do I build my fence? Do I not build my fence? We're still wrestling with that. Obviously, that only comes into play if somebody goes through an appeal process, but we just don't know if anyone's going to appeal for a period of time. So we'll work with property owners and try to find a best path for them based on kind of what we know. And I think we'll have a pretty good idea of how things are going to shape out after the Board of Adjustment meeting. If it was contentious, if there was neighborhood concerns, we may say, hey, we might want to wait a little bit. Or if there's just seemed like it was a clear path, that might give them a little more comfort in kind of proceeding. So our proposed amendment just adds this section regarding the city council's review, clarifies that approval process, and then amends the format procedures so that we're consistent with other boards and commissions. Architectural design requirements, again, another state imposed code amendment. We can no longer regulate architectural requirements on residential buildings with 12 or fewer units. So that means can't regulate siding material, can't regulate stone or masonry, trim, fenestration, articulation, any of those kind of fancy architect terms. Really just kind of limits our ability. There is some exceptions if it's in a planned unit development. So something that was agreed upon by the property owner in the city. If there's a designated state or historical district that may require, some sort of architectural standard. if there's an HOA, HOAs can impose their own requirements. So there is a few exceptions, but so our code amendment is pretty simple. It just adds a sentence saying that all the architectural requirements are not applicable if it's 12 or fewer units. Accessory dwelling units, this is just kind of a reminder of what is an ADU. They've got a number of different terms, in-law suite, granny flat, accessory apartment, a few just kind of benefits of ADUs within the city. Again, state code required. So any lot that has a single family residence is permitted to have an ADU now. They have to comply with all the building codes. There's some size limitations. Cannot exceed 1,000 square feet or 50% on whatever is larger. They can be more restrictive than the single family requirements. We can't require parking. We cannot restrict them based on familial status. So that'd be like the occupancy of the unit. So we can't say you can only have it if it's for your mother-in-law. Not allowed to do that. And then we can't have any additional metering requirements as well. So we can't say you have to go tap the main, bring a new water service line in, put another meter in. They're allowed to meter off of their own unit, sewer off of their own unit. Where we would have some ability is in the sewer side. We don't allow septic systems when we're within 300 feet of the sanitary sewer. So they would have to find a way to sanitary sewer it back to their house. That'd be really our only limit or our only ability to regulate. So the proposed code amendment is just simply adding a section, accessory dwelling units, and then identifying other permitted uses on single family lots. This just kind of again goes over a few additional items, just saying that they're going to require a permit, no more than one ADU per lot. If they're attached, they got to comply with principal dwelling setbacks. If they're detached, we're saying that they have to be 10 feet away from the property line rather than our standard 5 feet. And then they do not get counted toward density calculations, which is another state prohibition. This is just clarifying everything I've already said. And lastly, fireworks regulation and permitting. So this was something from 2 legislative sessions ago that happened in June. So the city did not have an opportunity to update the code in advance of that. We are no longer able to limit or prohibit fireworks on July 3rd, July 4th, and December 31st. Our previous code amendment prohibited them on the 31st and then regulated the hours differently than what the state said. So our proposed code amendment just brings the requirements in line with the state. So on July 3rd, from 9 to 10, you can shoot fireworks. July 4th, 9 to 11, you can shoot fireworks. And December 31st, 9 to 12:30, 12:30 being on the 1st. Our only addition to the state code is July 2nd. That was previously in the code, and staff did not propose anything different from that. I did provide, and is included in the packet as well, the information from the public safety partners. So the fire department and Polk County sheriffs were able to provide their data information on call volume and for those various days. And then the fire department was also able to provide some information on any fires that were associated with fireworks. Over the past 5 years, call volume is very minimal. I think it was like combined between the 2 entities, less than 15 calls over 5 years over the 4 days. 2 fires pertaining to fireworks, but they were really more mishandling of fireworks. So instead of dousing them in water, you just throw them in the garbage, put the garbage up next to the house catching on fire. No medical issues or anything like that. So, and speaking with both of our public safety partners, they didn't have a recommendation to alter or change anything as it pertains to the number of days or what we're currently doing. So I just wanted to provide that as a little update to you because that was a discussion at the public hearing. With that, we'd recommend approval. Happy to answer your questions.
All right, thank you, Alex. And yeah, just like you said, majority of this is just trying to align with what the state did, and sometimes you just got to do that. So appreciate staff's work. Questions or comments?
Did have a question pertaining to the accessory dwelling unit. So the last point you made is that it doesn't count towards our density. Does that mean for like census and the amount of money this, okay, that wouldn't affect that?
Yeah, so density as it pertains to the zoning district itself. So even in our single family zoning districts, there is density, meaning number of units per acre. So I think in most cases our single family districts are like 5 or 6 units per acre. The state says that we can't count those accessory dwelling units towards that density allocation. So if you had 6 units in an acre, perfectly allowed. Now you have an additional unit potentially for every one of those 6 lots. It's not 12 units an acre now. It's still 6.
Okay, makes sense. All right, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Good question.
Yeah.
All right. Questions or action?
My only question is, given we don't have a lot of sway over this, would it make sense to also waive the third consideration, or are there drawbacks to that?
So you can't.
Okay, that's a
just-
drawback.
Well, yeah. Well, you could. You can't tonight, which really renders it in order to suspend the rules for multiple readings, there has to be 4/5 council, and that would require 4 votes.
Got
We
it.
don't have 4 tonight,
Okay.
so we'll have to just stay where it is and then proceed with the third and final consideration of the next meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah. And that's okay. I mean, it's pretty mundane.
Yeah.
So it feels like why belabor it, but yeah, if we don't have 4, that is what it is. So,
All right, then I'll move forward the second consideration of ordinance 815 amendment code of ordinance title 12.
Okay.
right, been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Lovelady,
Aye.
Earlbeck.
Aye.
Phillips.
Aye.
All right, that motion passes. Thank you. That brings us to item number 5, second consideration of ordinance 816, amendment to the Code of Ordinances Title 6-8-2, nuisance enumerated, street use and maintenance associated with 8-2-10, maintenance of parking or terrace, and building regulation associated with 11-8-2 residential building code and 11-11-2 building code. Steve.
Mayor Council, Steve Tibbles, building official. So first section we have here, we redefined, they're not really redefined, we better defined what the maintenance responsibility of abutting property owners are in the parking and terrace. Essentially, we added that it needs to be the abutting property owner's responsibility up to the improved road surface. Before it was just up to the back of curb, which then created some confusion for staff and also for residents as to what their true responsibilities were. So we followed some language that we got from other budding property or other budding communities and just changed a little bit of our verbiage so it can better define what the abutting property owner's responsibility is. Second section, we have added some verbiage in there for restoration with sod. We've ran into some issues with a small amount of builders that they choose to seed their lot and keeps the permit open for a long period of time. It creates some issues with stormwater compliance. And so to create more of a uniform look and to close out permits quicker, we have made a recommendation of requiring restoration with sod, but it also gives them, if they have like unique lots that have different terrain, situations that their lots are extremely large, that we could possibly allow them to seed portions of the lot, but it's through staff approval. Additional items that we did, we better defined abandoned and unsafe buildings and added a section that refers to our property maintenance code and also to 657A of the state of Iowa code, which revolves around nuisance properties. Then also we had some cleanups in the residential building code and the commercial building code in regards to swimming pools that were missed in the previous code adoption process. Since we did adopt a swimming pool to management or swimming pools and spas code, it is kind of a moot point to have pool referenced in the building code and the residential building code, and then also have a swimming pool and spa coat. And that is what we did for changes. And staff would recommend approval.
Thank you. Questions or comments?
Steve, I did have one quick question. In regard to the seating, so when you said, we're gonna recommend that we do a sod on 99% of them, which I think is great. You said there could be a variance for them, allow them to seed in large areas or just certain circumstances. You said that'd be up for staff approval. Would that be something that would be brought to council, or would that just be something the staff could go ahead and
It
do?
would just be administratively done by staff. So I'd work with the planning division and see if it makes sense for them to seed in, like if there's a timbered area. Obviously sod is not gonna be a good solution for that, or there's a landscape buffer that is severely sloped. Sod may not take on that. So it's just for unique circumstances they can possibly seed, but otherwise we prefer to have sod just so we can close out the projects and have more of a uniform look.
And I would venture a guess, I'm gonna put you on the spot, Steve, if council saw some seating decisions that happen and they felt maybe that wasn't great, you would love to hear that feedback from them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ultimately feedback.
Okay. So there's an out and there's a checks and balances there a little bit, so. I feel like staff's always great about taking feedback, so not to be confrontational, sorry. So I'm allowed one joke per meeting. Any other questions or comments? Any action then?
Move to approve the second consideration of ordinance 816.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Earlbeck,
Aye.
Lovelady,
Aye.
DePhillips,
Aye.
All right, that passes. Thank you, Steve. That brings us to Evan here with item number 6, Blue Creek Village Site Plan Amendment.
All right, so this is Blue Creek Village, south of Southwest 11th Street and west of the Oakview Middle School. It is a townhome project across approximately 34 acres. We have previously approved the site plan, and this is an amendment to a small portion of their site plan. Just to go through the timeline really quick, they rezoned in October 25, went through their preliminary plat and site plan, and now just amending a portion of their site plan, which is basically just in the yellow area of their property. Their project is consistent with their future land use plan and the zoning, both for medium density residential and R3 medium. So the amendment is primarily just for this amenities area within their development as a private townhome development with their own clubhouse and pool. They have added a pool house with a restroom, the pool equipment, and dog washing station. And then added a mailbox kiosk, so a covered structure for their mailbox area. Just made some adjustments to the amenities, having grill seating, fire pit area, and hammock areas, and putting green. They still have a pool, just changed the layout a little bit, and same with the clubhouse, the layout has changed as well. And then still have the dog park and pickleball courts. They've added the services to that new restroom building, and then just made adjustments around that clubhouse and amenity area for the landscaping. So just shifting it around in relation to those new structures. And then the elevations for the clubhouse have changed. This is the new elevation. They're using similar materials as the townhome building. So they'll be using stone and then different colors of the vinyl siding. And then the little pool house will match the clubhouse with the stone and the vertical siding. And then the covered structure will include the vinyl wrapped wood posts. So happy to answer any questions you may have. Staff would recommend approval.
Okay, thank you. Council, questions, comments, or action?
The only comment I've got is I like it called the dog spa more than the dog wash. So I keep referring to it as that because that's a great draw. But no, this actually came through planning and zoning. I think it looks like a really nice development. And I do appreciate when we have developments like this that we're putting in things that honestly the community's been asking for a long time, like the dog park. We finally got our pickleball courts, but I think that'll be a nice big draw to the community and to the actual townhome community itself. So I think it looks good.
Thank you. Other questions, comments?
There was a large modification to the space, so I imagine they had to reduce the amount of units that they're able to put in with that, or
So the space was already there for the clubhouse, so then the same number of units are provided. They just were changing kind of all the layout and the building design, and elevations for everything, and added a few more amenities.
nothing else. I would move to approve Blue Creek Village site plan amendment.
A second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing on roll call?
Earlbeck,
Aye.
Lovelady,
Aye.
DePhilip,
Aye.
All right, that passes. Thank you. That brings us to item 7, resolution 08-2726, approving final plot of Blue Creek Village, Plot 1, and certain related easements and agreements. Evan.
All right, so this is the same property as the previous item. This is for the final plat, so just another step in the process, and this would be the final process that council would interact with this project. This is just a one lot subdivision. Really, the plat is to reserve all the necessary easements across the property. Just for reference, these are the private streets, so they're providing a bunch of easements that are following the public street or private streets. This would be their ingress egress easement, so allowing all the vehicles to pass through the property, and then all of the public utility easements that would be run along their streets. And then there would be a landscape buffer around the east, west, and south sides of the property, as well as a temporary access easement that would be provided for this stub here and then up to 11th Street. The purpose of that is just in the event that this neighboring property to the west develops, they would have a second point of access. Without that, they would only be able to construct 30 lots on one access out to 11th Street. So this gives a potential for that phase to continue with a second phase through this development. And then no right of way is necessary with this plat. It was previously dedicated with the Meadows development. No parkland dedication will be provided, but they will be providing the fee in lieu, which that money will be used for Meadows Park right across the street. And then there will be a trail along their development, and they'll have a connection to Meadows Park. And then with future development, they'll be able to connect out to county line, and then with the future greenway trail along the transmission line. Happy to answer any questions you may have, and staff would recommend approval.
All right, thank you, Evan. Council, questions, comments, or action?
No questions on this one.
All right, I will move to approve resolution 08-2726, approving the final plat of Blue Creek Village.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Earlbeck,
Aye.
Lovelady,
Aye.
DePhillips,
Aye.
All right, that passes. That brings us to item 8, Brookside Village North Townhomes preliminary plot and site plan.
All right, so this development is located at the southeast corner of Northeast 18th Street and Highway 141. The preliminary plat will be for a 2-lot residential development, and then we'll have the site plan for the townhome development. So this project or property was rezoned in March, and now we're at the preliminary plat and site plan stage. The future land use is mixed use and medium density, and it was rezoned to R4 to allow the townhome development on the east and the multifamily on the west side. The parkland situation, the North Park is the nearest park that would serve this development. There's no parkland dedication required, so all the residents will be able to use North Point Park. There will be a trail that will connect from destination to 18th Street to provide that connectivity to the park. And then fee in lieu will be provided for future improvements to North Point Park. And then just a little background on the roads in this area. We're currently constructing Destination Drive here, which will provide the street access for the development. This previous or this little stub here is public right of way. We're working through vacating that and then dedicating half to this townhome project that we'll discuss here in a bit, and then to the neighboring townhome development. They will share that as a private drive. It will remain the same as today. And then working to vacate this portion of 18th Street that is now closed. So the preliminary plat is for 2 lots, one for the townhomes, one for the multifamily, and then the right-of-way for Destination Drive through the center. The access will be provided from Destination Drive, and then sanitary, sewer, and water are available to the both lots. For the site plan, this is for the townhome side on the east side of the destination, and just for reference, north is on the right-hand side of the screen. It will be for 63 attached townhome units. There are 3 building types. There are 4 units in a row, 5 units in a row, and then the 10-unit clusters. And then all the utilities and streets will be private within the development. They will have private street lighting, a shared dumpster enclosure, and then they will construct the 10-foot trail along Destination to provide that connectivity to North Point Park, and then have internal 5-foot sidewalks within the development. Utilities. They will connect to the existing water along Destination and or actually from the stub off of Point Drive, and then sanitary is available to the south. There will be 2 detention basins, one on the north and one on the south. Both will be private. The north one will be the wet basin, and then the south will be a dry basin. For landscaping, there'll be primarily all along the street frontages with the heavier landscaping, kind of the north and west side of the development to provide some screening for the rear and side sides of the buildings from the street. And then these are the elevations for the building. So this is the example for the 10-unit building. These would be back to back. And then this would be the side from Destination, and this would be internal. And then there'll be 2 different color options for each of the buildings. So this is the other color option for the 10-unit building. And then the 5-unit building, which would be the more typical row home style. And then same for the 4-unit. And then each unit will have the coach style lights on the front. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and staff would recommend approval.
All right, thank you, Evan. I did have one question. So the very north east corner of that is going to connect into that current stub that's
Yes.
there. is there any discussion how that's gonna play? Because the way Destination Drive's gonna wrap and connect, that's gonna be kind of close. Was there any concerns or what were maybe some discussion around that?
Yeah, so this would be the same access point that's there today. There'd be no changes, with the project. And then I know that Snyder did the, traffic study, for this area, for all the roundabout and the alignment. And that's how that, alignment was, um, determined and then worked out with the closing of 18th Street. As far as this access point, I know they would need to have two access points for fire emergency services, but I don't know if engineering has any additional details to share about this particular
I mean, Mayor,
access.
we went through an exercise of vacating that as public right of way. But that doesn't necessarily mean it goes away as an access.
Right, and because I was just pulling the map up to remind myself, because it is an access point for what's currently there, so you can't like get rid of that.
Right,
I was
yes. It will stay exactly the same. It'll just be private.
And I don't have an issue with that. It just dawned on me, like, just the proximity to Destination, but I mean, it looks smaller than it probably really is, right? I mean, so there is that. I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it, so probably,
Staff has no comment.
yeah.
I feel like this is where they could insert.
Well,
too.
and there, you know, and to your point, there was Snyder did some work on it and stuff. Staff looked at it, so
I think it's worth raising. I mean, it sounds like they. There we go.
I mean, the location of that, Snyder did do their design and they were concerned about coming around the corner curve there, but they have laid it out where the curve is kind of ending right before that. And so you don't really have too much. You should be able to see somebody coming down through the curve there if they're coming around. And then the speeds on that roadway will be like 30, 25 probably. Can't remember. Yeah, but it shouldn't be too much of a hazard there. And Snyder did do that traffic impact study and design of that, so it shouldn't be a problem.
yeah. That's a good point, because it is kind of like the end of the road and you're gonna have to curve, so people are gonna be naturally slowing down to accommodate it. And yeah, so good point, Matt. Thank you. I don't have any other comments, council.
So pretty big project that we've got going on here. And as far as I know, the only park is the one that they're gonna be providing fee in lieu of, the one. Been by that park. It's not very big. And the term you use is future improvements. Do they have a plan in place to add additional amenities to that park, or is that just like in the future someday they might build something else there?
Yeah, I know that the city wants to do that, and with all these fees from this development and then the future apartment complex across the street, and then actually all the apartments and townhomes to the south, all of those fee in lieu would be used to improve North Brent Park. So we will have a good chunk of money to use for improvements. But as far as the specifics, we don't have anything in place at this time, but we would go through the similar exercise like we're going through right now with Waterworks Park of developing a concept and getting neighborhood feedback and bringing it to Park Board and P&Z and Council to get all that approved. So I think Brian would have a better idea of timing on that and what the budget allows and what was in place in the CIP.
Yeah, I guess my question is more along the lines of this isn't just a budget that's gonna sit for, oh, that swing broke, we're gonna fix this. The plan is to actually develop that park out.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And that's something, to your point, Jared, you know, as we go through some of our exercises this fall, we can point staff into saying, hey, this is a priority for us. We want to see this park happen and not just sit on that money if that's what we so choose. And I mean, I'm guessing there's probably some appetite there, but we gotta let that process play out. But it's a good point.
I would motion to approve Brookside Village North Townhomes preliminary plat site.
I will second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Earlbeck,
Aye.
Lovelady,
Aye.
DePhillips,
Aye.
All right, that passes. That brings us to item 9. Next phase, Grimes Warehouse Site Plan. Olivia.
All right, so this is next phase Grimes Warehouse site plan. The property is located at 355 Southwest 37th Street, so right next to the intersection of 37th Street and South James Street. The proposal for tonight is a light industrial building with tenant suites for warehouse and office uses. The property is approximately 3.5 acres, and the building proposed is around 43,000 square feet. In addition to the zoning in place, the property is also under the Legacy at James Street zoning change and development agreement. Just as a timeline for this area, in 2022, the council approved rezoning for the property in blue, which you can't really see, but it's this entire square here. And then in July 2022, Donovan Marine site plan was approved, and that's right next to our site here that we're proposing tonight. And then in August 2022, the plat for that entire piece was also passed through council, which brings us to the Lot 2 site plan here tonight. So the future land use for this property is business, park, and light industrial. The proposed site plan does match that future land use. And then the property zoning is transportation corridor, which is in that hatched line work you see here. And then also M1A, which is commercial and limited light industrial. The site plan, like I said, the building is approximately 43,350 square feet. They'll have tenant bays facing 37th Street and also tenant bays on the back side as well. There's approximately 107 parking stalls around the tenant bays and also in a front parking lot here. They'll be sharing a driveway to the west, as well as constructing a shared drive access point to the east. And then we also are pursuing a future sidewalk agreement for their sidewalk in front of the Southwest 37th Street. The utilities plan, the sanitary will be stubbed from the southwest side of the property from the public main, and then the water service will also be stubbed from public water main along Southwest 37th. There's also storm sewer proposed throughout the site, and then they will have a detention pond on the north end that will ultimately discharge into this creekway here. The landscaping plan, the proposed site does meet the requirements for open space as well as the street trees. And then the applicant has also proposed screening to block some of those views of the overhead doors. Here are the proposed elevations. The building does meet the required architecture requirements for both the development agreement as well as the zoning for the property. The building will be made out of colored precast paneling with varying colors, white, 2 different shades of gray, and then I believe a black. So the top here would be facing Southwest 37th Street. also has some storefront glazing. And then this is the west elevation, so facing James Street, but one lot over. And these will be the overhead doors for each of the tenant bays. Here's the north elevation on the top, some more tenant bays, and then on the east elevation, similar in size to the west elevation. Other than that, staff recommends approval. P&Z did also recommend approval earlier this month as well. That's all I got.
Thank you, Olivia. Zoning's come up a lot. If you go back a few slides to your timeline.
Yep.
So, when it says rezoning there, May 2022, just for context, because we've been talking about PUDs and zoning, etc. That wasn't a zoning to like change it to be something special, right? It was ag before. So you're changing it from ag to match what the comprehensive and zoning plan says, which is light industrial.
Correct.
So it wasn't like some special zoning deal, or it was corn before, and now we're changing it to fit what we said it was going to be. So just pointing that out in case, because the word's been going around tonight, maybe somebody noticed and was like, hey, wait a minute. So just providing context in a moment that I thought maybe could help. So,
Mr. Mayor, also to add to that, that's where you get the development agreements is from that rezoning change. So with this, they had additional requirements or stipulations with their regular zoning that the council approved, which gets you certain architecture or certain landscaping requirements, other things like that.
yeah. No, and the other thing I'd add is, people don't typically get too jazzed about warehouses, but these things do matter for us. I mean, they do create jobs. Now, are they going to create like vast amount of jobs? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But they have a lot of evaluation. They're taxed at a higher rate. And if you're a resident, like that helps offset what you're being, having to do as a resident. So it does contribute to the city and helps from a residential perspective. And you're not getting a lot of public safety calls at these places either. And so you're getting a lot of ROI on those tax dollars from that public safety perspective as well. So I'm not like, ooh, yay, more warehouse. But those are important things, and I think people should, acknowledge those and the value they do provide to the city. So,
Well, I think one important thing too is, it's not something you're going to develop houses on, so the use makes sense, and the proximity of 37 to the interstate brings the smallest distance of impact from where these trucks are entering the road and getting right out of town. So that part kind of makes sense too.
So maybe we got something right there. All right. I like it. Other questions, comments, action?
I'll move the next phase of the growing warehouse site plan to approve.
Okay.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Lovelady,
Aye.
Earlbeck,
Aye.
DePhillips,
Aye.
All right, that passes. Thank you. That brings us to item 10, DCG Operations Campus Expansion Site Plan Amendment.
All right. So the DCG Operations Campus Site Expansion Site Plan Amendment is located at 255 Southwest Jazzwood Drive, right on the corner of Jazzwood and Highway 44 or West First Street. The proposal tonight is for a building addition to expand office space and some operations uses on the property. The building addition is approximately 11,240 square feet, and the property is 9 acres. Just to go over the timeline for this property, the rezoning for the property was in 2014, as well as an additional site plan amendment that added a couple buildings and some pavement. That was also in 2014, which brings us to tonight, another site plan amendment for the property. For the future land use and zoning, the proposed uses match the future land use plan, which is public and semi-public use. The zoning for the property on the north corner here is C2, which is general and highway service commercial, as well as the transportation corridor. And then on the bottom half of the property is M1A, which is that limited and light industrial. Here's the site plan for the property. So on the right-hand side is facing north, and then on the top here is Southwest Jaswood. So tonight we're really looking at the north half of the property. In the future, the applicant may be expanding bus parking at a later date. So the building addition is around 11,000 square feet. They'll be adding 28 new parking stalls, which totals up to 69 on the site. They're reconstructing some of the utilities, which includes sanitary sewer system, and then also expanding their water main on the site. And then they're adding a dumpster enclosure and replacing and expanding some parking pavement. Just wanted to show the demo plan. If you've ever driven out here, the property has some nice trees. Some of them will be removed to make way for the proposed improvements. Some will be staying as well. The applicant will also be removing some storm sewer for that replacement and expansion, and as well as some pavement. Here's just the utilities plan. The property does have an existing septic system. Septic systems are reviewed and approved by Dallas County. The applicant has gotten approval from Dallas County, so they will be installing that with their project, and then adding some additional water main. Go to the landscaping plan. The landscaping, they're adding some trees, which meet the street tree requirements, as well as some other shrubs on site. Here's the proposed elevation. So, facing First Street and Highway 44, the building addition will be made out of dark gray brick. And then facing Southwest Jaswood, they'll have the brick as well, and then some gray metal paneling. Within our staff report and also at planning and zoning, the gray metal paneling was originally red, and the applicant has decided to switch it to gray. Just wanted to note that if you had seen that or remembered that from the memos. And then for the building addition connection, they're matching the existing white metal panel. There are no rooftop units proposed. Some of the mechanical units will be facing the south here, and then that fencing screening would match the building. So for the south elevation, they also are proposing brick and then an overhead door for their operations. And then on this west side of the building will be more office use. Here's the east elevations. Again, matching the existing building and then adding the brick. Here's the trash enclosure. The trash enclosure will match the building with the primary brick material. I just wanted to note, we've done some public projects near this property. The most recent one is the asphalt overlay of Southwest Jaswood that was completed in July. The proposed driveways will connect into that road. And then in the future, we'll be acquiring future right-of-way for the expansion of Southwest Jaswood. Currently, we're working with the property owner to get the warranty deed and everything through the school board. So that plat will be brought to council at a later date. With that, don't have anything else, but staff would recommend approval, and then we also have representation here tonight as well.
Okay, thank you. Council, questions, comments, or action?
For me, I think that was pretty straightforward and comprehensive. Thank you.
Just out of pure curiosity, why did we switch it from red to gray?
I don't have that answer.
Thought you were gonna get away with it, didn't you?
No, when we looked at the plan and we looked at our team, we just thought that red, was just a little, we didn't like that color. It was kind of on the corner and then it was up on the side, so we switched it to gray. I think it looks better.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, the red on like the administration building, it's really nice building, called it out. You know, a lot of people go there for this. It's a maintenance. Probably don't need to shine a huge spotlight on it. I get, it's probably a fair change. So.
All right, with that, I'll move DCG Operations Campus Expansion Site Plan. Move to approve.
Okay.
All right, but moved in second. And any further discussion? Hearing on roll call.
Lovelady,
Aye.
Earlbeck,
Aye.
DePhillips,
Aye.
All right, that passes. Thank you very much. That brings us to discussion items. Are there any staff reports?
I got one call out tonight, Mr. Mayor. Denman and Company is here doing the field work, city's annual financial audit. They are auditing the accounting period that started on July 1 of 25 and ended on June 30th, 26. That really kind of represents a lot of work for Marcia and her team. Just wanted to give that a shout out. When their work is complete, it'll be filed into an annual audit report and will be presented to the city council, which typically occurs around the end of the calendar year.
Anything else?
I have nothing further to report.
Okay, that brings us to mayor and city council reports. I have nothing at this time other than just to say, condolences to Andy Borkerding and his family. Any other reports?
Nothing specific around planning and zone. No.
WRA continues to work through projected costs associated with the phosphorus facility and until then puts on hold, and there'll be there'll definitely be further conversations as they work to figure out the prioritization of some of their CIP work that's coming up in the next probably 5+ years associated with that. So more to come.
All right, thank you. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, all those opposed, stay around. No, that passes. We are adjourned. Thank you.